Welcome
to
The
Forum.
Hello and welcome to the Forum. I am Britt Newton.
And I'm Rosanna DeRuthi. We are proud members of the Policy Center for Maternal Mental Health's Board of Directors, and we welcome all of you, healthcare payers, state and community nonprofits, federal government and state government leaders, national nonprofit partners, health system leaders, philanthropy, advocates, and so much more.
We are proud to bring you all together again for the 14th annual Forum. This is where cross-sector insights are shared, seeds are planted, and real systems change is made possible. If this is your first time joining us, we offer you a very warm welcome. This week marks 1 year since we changed our name from 2020 Mom after working to lay the foundation for maternal mental health by the year 2020 to the Policy Center for Maternal Mental Health to more clearly explain what we do.
We hope the many reports and insights the organization has produced this year, from the inaugural maternal mental health state report cards to an analysis of insurer coverage policies for the new postpartum depression drug, have crossed your desks and illuminated ways that together we can close gaps in maternal mental health. Stay tuned for the release of our new website and URL this summer.
We are now honored to introduce the Policy Center's Executive Director, Joy Burkhard, who will serve as your host throughout our 2 days together.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you, Britt and Rosanna. Welcome to the 650 of you who are joining us for the Maternal Mental Health Forum. You represent 48 states and a few countries. Before we begin, I wish to acknowledge that I come to you from Los Angeles and the ancestral lands of the Tataviam, meaning the people of the sun. Again, we welcome you. As you likely know, on average, 1 in 5 women and other birthing people will experience a maternal mental health disorder like postpartum depression, maternal OCD, postpartum psychosis, and more. Those rates are even higher in Black, Latina, and Indigenous people. Despite the prevalence, most of us here in the United States go undiagnosed and untreated. Over the course of our 2 days together, we will hear from a lineup of over 70 speakers, including leaders from government, insurers, professional associations, and more, who will share their expertise and join all of us in designing a better future for maternal mental health by taking small steps and large leaps together. Some of the speakers that will be joining us today and tomorrow include our sponsors. We'd like to thank them for their expertise and support. And in particular, we want to acknowledge and thank our champion sponsors, including Cigna, the California Healthcare Foundation, the Zoma Foundation, the Bezos Family Foundation, and finally, I want to acknowledge the Perigee Fund, who makes much of our policy work possible. We are truly grateful for your investment in us and the field of maternal mental health, and of course, this event. Joining us over the 2 days is a graphic facilitator. Her name is Rio Holiday. She'll be illustrating key points from our main stage sessions through a live video that we will share occasionally on the screen. And I promise that you're going to love how she illustrates key themes from our event. We also want to invite you to join us on social media. You can find our handle here, Policy Center MMH, on LinkedIn and Twitter or X, and MMH Forum or Maternal Mental Health. Share what you love most on social media so we can grow this audience and the field together. Throughout the event, you may hear various terms used to refer to maternal mental health disorders, such as perinatal mental health and possibly perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, sometimes shortened to PMADS. These terms mean the same thing, the various maternal mental health disorders that occur in pregnancy and through 1 to 2 years postpartum. Now, a little bit more about Whova, our event platform. Even though you're viewing the event through Whova in Zoom, you can chat through Whova during each of our sessions. The chat bar is on the right side of the viewing window, so we invite you to use that chat feature. You can also post questions to our presenters in the Q&A section for each session in Whova. Questions will be answered this week rather than live during our sessions today. Links for relevant documents that our presenters are going to be sharing are also housed in Whova in the particular session in the agenda, and you can also find a session description there. Whova will also allow you to schedule meetups if you would like, anytime over the next 3 days to 3 months, any topic you wish, or perhaps you want to host a state session. We encourage you to use all of the Whova features. And speaking of meeting up, we will close out our session today with networking sessions hosted by regions. And we'll do a deep dive into state policy strategies that are working in those regions and states. More to come on those sessions later. And now on to the programming. When planning our first forum 14 years ago, we were given some words of wisdom by a leader in Colorado. He shared to always start with a story. And to that end, I'd like to invite our first set of speakers to the main stage. A mother, Emily Harris, who joins us from Arizona, will share her story, and Dr. Amalia Landano, a bicultural and bilingual psychiatrist and researcher who specializes in perinatal mental health, will also be joining us from Washington, D.C. to discuss Emily's story. As a reminder, stories can also often be challenging to hear, particularly for those who may have had similar experiences. Please feel free to step away if you need to. And again, we are very excited to have you, Emily, join us on the main stage to share your story. Welcome to both Emily and Dr. Landano.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Joy, for allowing me to share my story today. My journey with managing my mental health began long before I was pregnant. I remember being in 7th grade when the first thoughts of hopelessness and despair entered my mind. Since then, depression has always haunted me. For me, it presents itself as low energy and lack of motivation. Basic tasks like maintaining my personal hygiene seem like too much. I tend to retreat, isolate myself, and push everyone away. Early in my first pregnancy, I had an alarming experience. At the time, I was swimming in the ocean, and the feelings of depression began rising within me, suffocating me. I didn't think I could take any more. I wanted to give up, feel peace again, and just be gone. Thoughts of death had entered my mind before, and I was feeling overwhelmed with the new reality of being pregnant and feeling incapable of being a mom. I thought about letting go and dying. But in an instant, I felt something I'd never felt before. The immense responsibility of being accountable for another life. It took me by surprise. For the first time, I realized my decisions weren't just about me anymore, and I swam back to shore. Moving forward, I knew I had to advocate for myself. I needed to be the one to help myself. I told my OBGYN in the first appointment about my history of anxiety and depression. I'd never taken medicine before, but she had suggested it. And after much reluctancy, I agreed and began taking an antidepressant. It helped a little, but a new set of behaviors were emerging. Every night before I could fall asleep, I had to check my husband's pulse multiple times. I began experiencing thoughts that he would die if I didn't check on him. The thoughts would loop and swirl in my head until I found a way to comfort, pacify, or eliminate my fears. I had developed OCD. It amplified during my pregnancy and worsened after the birth of my oldest son. I found myself checking on my son's breathing every 2 minutes while he was sleeping. I was stricken with fear that he would die, and the thoughts were so intense they would literally paralyze my body with fear. The only way I found a bit of a relief was if I checked on him over and over again. The anxiety fed the OCD, and the depression kept me isolated. I was desperate for connection, but fear and shame were controlling my life. A common thought for me is, I can fix this on my own. Maybe it's a part of my Hispanic upbringing, but I didn't want to talk about my problems. I needed support, but I didn't want to talk to my family, including my Mexican American mother, who I feared wouldn't understand. Suffering in silence was, and sometimes still is, easier than warning others. And furthermore, I was taught that when you keep matters private, you won't bring criticism or disappointment to the family. Days without help passed, and between the births of our first and second sons, we experienced 2 miscarriages. Not surprisingly, this had a significant impact on my well-being. And again, I felt completely overwhelmed with hopelessness. Fear was my anxiety's source of power, and I was overridden by disappointment, shame, and uncertainty. Fortunately, after the birth of our second son, after 4 years of battling, I found healing through the right combinations of medications prescribed by a psychiatrist specializing in perinatal mood disorders and counseling with the therapist I completely trust. With my counselor, I feel heard and respected. I gained clarity and balance. Countless people have helped me on my journey, and for that, I am deeply thankful. And as a result, I can teach my boys about my struggles and triumphs, and most importantly, teach them that even in the darkest of moments, help is always within reach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily, for sharing your powerful story and journey and your courage and bravery throughout the years and today, really advocating for maternal mental health. And I really want to thank the Policy Center for Maternal Mental Health for really starting with a story, because you're absolutely right. Stories are so powerful, and Emily's is incredibly powerful and highlights some really important points. An important point that Emily mentioned is that even though she had started, and had some symptoms even before pregnancy, which we know individuals with pregnancy, come to pregnancy and postpartum, 1/3 of them actually come with histories of anxiety and depression and other conditions. Despite that, people are missed and they fall through the cracks. And I think, Emily, I think I heard that that was the case for you, that even though you knew and you had some experience with some of these symptoms previously, things are different during pregnancy and postpartum. And it sounds like these were missed by some of your providers and professionals that saw you. Is that right, Emily?
Yeah, I would say that it was hard in, excuse me, in some ways, to be completely honest, even with the providers, because as a first-time mother, you're experiencing all these things. And if you don't have a friend or someone with children, who do you talk to? And you're kind of even afraid at times to tell the truth and say what you're really experiencing. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, what if they take my child away from me? And that's enough to silence even the strongest of women.
Yeah, absolutely. Such important points, like all the different barriers that go into being able to talk about more openly about these conditions and symptoms, particularly when some of them are so scary, right? Like the ones you experienced, or feel so scary, right, to the individuals that have it as well. And I think it's really great that you highlighted as well the importance of individuals doing some of the advocating, and that you felt like you had to do the advocating for yourself. And I think that our systems need to do a better job, right, at making sure that moms and families feel comfortable, right, disclosing this, that the systems are not punitive, but actually encourage moms to seek help and get the help they need. And we know that unfortunately, very few individuals actually, even though it's recommended, first of all, get screened, get talked about that screen. And even when they have those screens, that's even harder. And I would say that particularly for, Hispanic moms, Latina moms, that we know from studies is even a greater barrier to being able to be identified as having these symptoms and then going on to getting services and services that they need. And you mentioned that that was part of your upbringing and being Latina. And I'm curious as to how, if you could share a little bit about how your upbringing really played a role in you seeking and also accessing care along the way.
Yeah, so I feel like I had to take a lot into my own hands. You know, I wanted to share, I just didn't know how to start. I remember leaving the hospital with like a pamphlet of papers, and just like that was it. It was like, here you go, take care, good luck. And so it felt very overwhelming and very isolating. And I wish I had aunts or cousins or someone to talk to feel safe to openly chat with and say like, hey, I'm experiencing these things. Did you experience that? But it was not part of my upbringing, and there was no one I felt like I could talk to.
Thank you for sharing that. I hear there, a lot of aspects as we need to do a better job at continuing to talk about these conditions, also in the Hispanic community where there's still a lot of stigma around these conditions. And then in general, of course, as well, but with particular sensitivity to the needs that Latinas, Hispanic individuals that are pregnant postpartum face. And ensuring that it's not only just a paper, right, that they give you, but really supporting in getting help in a very complex system that it is to navigate mental health, and really ensuring that we have culturally congruent services and diversity of professionals who care for individuals during this period. So I think those are some things that I wanted to, highlight, and really thank you for, your bravery, again, your story, and really opening with that. And I'll turn it on to Joy.
Thank you both, Emily and Dr. Landano, for helping us understand Emily's story in a deeper way. We have shared a link in chat about maternal OCD resources developed by the International OCD Foundation, along with many perinatal mental health experts, and also have a forthcoming issue brief on Latina maternal mental health. Dr. Landano, thank you so much for your insights and contributions in this space, and Emily for sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.